Why is it Levi? Zoe sobbed after learning the truth. Caitlin snatched the phone over and said, "Sweetie, we had no choice. It was Levi who volunteered to take your dad's place. How could you do that? You didn't even tell me." "Wait there, I am coming. Home now," Zoe cried. Shortly after, Zoe arrived home. "Sweetie, Levi told us not to tell you. It doesn't matter if he loses a few fingers anyway, but I can't lose any," Erin said. A sob caught in Zoe's throat. "Sweetie, you will have to return the money as soon as possible. That way we can buy Levi a few more days," Caitlin said. "But that just means he'll lose a finger with every passing day," Zoe screamed. "How could you bear to do it? It's not like we have a choice. You can't just watch your dad suffer, can you? He's still young, so he can take it," Caitlin comforted. "Did you force him to go?" Zoe asked, staring at them. "He did it of his own free will. We didn't force him," Erin denied. Caitlin exchanged a look with Erin and blurted out, "Sweetie, once we settle this debt, you should get a divorce with Levi." Zoe looked incredulous. "What? Divorce? Dad, Levi suffered in your stead. How could you just give him the brush after using him? Are we such heartless people?" "Sweetie, Levi's sacrifice won't go unnoticed," Erin and Caitlin said hastily. "We're not ungrateful people. We will compensate him with enough money once this is over." I'm so disappointed in you people today. But you must divorce Levi. He has never been good enough for you in the first place, and now that his fingers are gone, he's not worthy of you. "I can never tolerate my daughter marrying a cripple with incomplete fingers," said Erin adamantly. Zoe was bemused. "How can they be so cruel to Levi just to save themselves?" "Zoe, you can't cry over spilt milk now. Just hurry up and pay off the debt if you want Levi to suffer a little less," Caitlin said. Just then, Harry arrived. "Our turning point is here." Harry couldn't contain his excitement. "What do you mean, Dad?" Erin asked quizzically. "Someone has just come to inform us that there is a person willing to help us pay back the money, but on one condition: Zoe must remarry," Harry said. "Really?" Harry raised the $300 million check in his hand. They brought the check. "Now the question is, Zoe, will you remarry or not?" Zoe was momentarily lost, but she knew that $300 million was too big an amount to get at this moment. "What are you hesitating for? Go on, say yes," Erin urged. Right now, money was gold. Just say yes. "If you agree now, Levi won't have to suffer so much," Caitlin said, causing Zoe to shudder as the cruel image from the video flashed in her mind. "For Levi." "Okay, I agree to remarry," said Zoe. The adults were instantly relieved. Harry took out a keycard and handed it to Zoe. "If you agree, go look for him at Sheraton Hotel. We only have the right to use the check once you arrive at the hotel." "Who is this person, Grandpa?" Zoe asked. "I don't know. But we were informed that he's someone who has pursued you before. As long as you marry him, he will pay the $300 million for us, and he promises that the Lopez family will be worry-free for life," Harry said. Erin and Caitlin looked at each other, their eyes brimming with joy at the blessing in disguise and at Zoe's remarriage to a super-rich man. "Go on then. Mr. Enzo has changed his mind and is only giving us 1 day. If you're late, Levi will lose all his fingers," Harry prodded. Hearing that, Zoe accepted the keycard and dashed out. Naturally, these were all Oswald's arrangements. It was he who gave them that 300 million check. In his opinion, it was equivalent to not spending a single cent, as the money would be returned to him after the Lopez family gave the check to Enzo. Not only could he turn Levi into a cripple and hound him to death, but he could also get Zoe. It was simply the most profitable business. With an apprehensive heart, Zoe finally arrived at the hotel. She knew what it signified, but the primary purpose at present was to pay back the money quickly and relieve Levi of his sufferings. And only by meeting the said person would he solve their problems. Arriving at the designated presidential suite, Zoe took a deep breath before opening the door. Standing in front of the French windows in the vast living room was a man whose back Zoe felt was familiar. When he turned around, Zoe was stunned. "Oswald, it's you," she asked in disbelief. She had thought it would be someone else. After all, Oswald had never harassed her for the past 6 years. He would have made his move long ago if he wanted to have her. "Are you wondering why I haven't been looking for you for the past 6 years?" Oswald said, seeing through Zoe's mind as he adjusted his gold-rimmed spectacles. Zoe nodded. "The truth is, I have been watching you all this time during these 6 years. Our #1 beauty of Northampton. I wanted to see how long you two can last, but I didn't expect you to hold on for 6 years, Oswald sneered. "You set up the whole thing about my dad losing money?" Zoe asked, remembering the matter suddenly. "How could you say that?" "No one forced him to gamble." Oswald shrugged. You are a scoundrel," said Zoe angrily. "Just give up, Zoe. If I could destroy you people 6 years ago, I can do it again." Oswald cackled with laughter. Thunderstruck, Zoe gazed at Oswald incredulously. "You did that 6 years ago?" Oswald sniggered. "How do you think the Garrisson family could overthrow Levi 6 years ago?" Zoe was as angry as hell upon learning that piece of information. "I am giving you 2 options, Zoe. 1. Strip naked and lie on the bed. 2. Leave now, but it will be disastrous for Levi. His fingers and toes will be chopped off, but I can't say if he will choose to jump off the cliff in the end." Oswald's lips curved into a malicious smile at the thought that his goals of forcing Levi to death and having Zoe get into his bed were about to be achieved. Zoe was utterly floored. Oswald had planned everything beforehand, and she was left with no choice but to listen to him. Otherwise, Levi would be either crippled or dead. Meanwhile, as soon as Zoe arrived at the hotel, Harry received a message. "You can use the check now." Aaron headed to the underground casino with Harry. As soon as they arrived, they were brought up short by the sight of Levi coming down from the 2nd floor, holding a stack of documents of title deeds and so on in his hands. Most importantly, Levi's fingers were all completely intact. He was clean from head to toe, with not a single stain of blood to be seen. They looked at Levi's fingers. Perfectly intact. All 10 fingers are still there. How is it even possible? His fingers were clearly chopped off from the video. As their mouths were still wide agape with incredulity, Levi had already come up to them. "Where did you get this check?" Levi took over the check and had a premonition of something bad as he studied it. "How are you okay? Didn't you have your finger chopped off?" Aaron was baffled. Levi ignored them and suddenly raised his voice. "How in the world did you get this check?" Aaron hesitated. "Spit it out." Levi snarled, exuding a breath of hostility that made the two of them hold their breaths as if they were being strangled at their necks. His gaze was especially terrifying. Intimidated, Aaron gave him a factual account of the chronology of the incident at Sheraton Hotel on Maxwell Street. Aaron finished. "How long has it been?" Levi asked. "It's probably too late." Aaron lowered his head. Harry nodded. "Yeah, it's too late, even if you get there in a sports car." Levi threw the pile of documents to the ground, pushed them aside, and dialed Azure Dragon's number as he walked out. "I need a chopper. Immediately. Now." Levi's voice was cold to the extreme. Less than 5 minutes after he left the casino, a military helicopter came to a halt on the square. Ignoring the astonishment of those passing by, Levi boarded the helicopter. A sports car might not make it there on time, but a helicopter could. "I want the Sheraton Hotel's blueprint layout." A gleam of murderous intent flashed in Levi's eyes. In Sheraton Hotel's presidential suite, Zoe was still confronting Oswald. "There's no use stalling for time, Zoe. The more you hesitate, the more Levi will suffer." Oswald chortled. Of course, Zoe understood that point, but she couldn't get past the hurdle in her heart. She even wanted to jump off the building and get it over with. Oswald stood with his back facing the window, appraising Zoe. "Relax, I won't force you. I will wait for you to get into my bed whenever you wish." The grin on Oswald's face widened like a devil from hell. "Do you want me to broadcast it to you now to see how many of Levi's fingers have been chopped off?" Oswald was well versed in psychological warfare. He was destroying Zoe's psychological defense to a great extent. "You are a monster," Zoe shrieked, glaring at Oswald. "You are not the first person to call me that. Every woman that I have slept with and every man that I have killed called me a monster." Oswald gave a broken smile as he inched closer. Zoe stared at him in horror, moving back slowly. "What? Is Levi that cripple really so good? How am I inferior to him?" Oswald asked. "No. You can never match him," Zoe shouted. Oswald took out his phone and sniggered. "Howard, tell Enzo to chop off Levi's hands and feet for me and send me the video." "Wait." Zoe shouted in panic when she heard that. "I will listen to you only if you don't make things hard for him. Just don't touch him. Then come on." Oswald opened his arms wide, waiting for Zoe to fall into his arms. Bang. Crack. Then, suddenly, the French windows behind Oswald made a sound like ice breaking, and it shattered. A man rushed in from outside. It was Levi. Bang. With a hard kick, he sent Oswald flying out of the way. Boom. Oswald slammed into the wall, bleeding all over the place. He was about to struggle to his feet when Levi grabbed his hair. Oomph. Levi gave him a sharp punch to the face, causing Oswald's spectacles to crumble. Oomph. Then came the second of a punch. Oomph. At the third punch, Oswald passed out. Stop. Stop it, shouted Zoe, coming back to her senses. He is going to die. Right now, Levi had surely lost all sense of rationality. He had never been so infuriated before. Zoe was his bottom line. And whoever crossed that line was a dead man. Zoe looked at Levi in fear. She could feel his overwhelming hostility. This is a 30-story building. How did he come in from the outside? He's the devil of a man. Let's go. Zoe pulled Levi away, afraid that he would really beat Oswald to death if they stayed there any longer. After Levi had left with Zoe, several bodyguards entered the room. The sight of Oswald lying in a pool of blood scared them. Who did this? No matter who did this, even God can't save him now. Who the fuck in Northampton has the audacity to lay hands on Mr. Rogers? Zoe knew they were in deep trouble. She was keenly aware of Oswald's identity as the sole heir of the aristocratic Rogers family, not to mention his tens of billions of wealth, his network of connections ramified all over the military, political, and business circles. He was the true juggernaut of Northampton. Compared to the Rogers family, they were as small and insignificant as ants. She was glad that she had responded quickly. Otherwise, Oswald would have been dead by now and the consequences would have been disastrous. Don't mention any of this when we return, Zoe instructed. When they returned home, everyone looked at Levi incredulously. What happened? Did they make things hard for you? What about those title deeds and other stuff? Levi took out the IOU and tore it off in front of the mass. It's settled. You guys don't have to bother about it anymore, Levi said coldly. Huh? How did you do it? Aaron and the others were utterly perplexed. It was only then that Zoe noticed Levi had come through all those perils unscathed. Not only did he not lose a finger, he even got the IOU. I called the cops once I got a lead. The underground casino should be toast by now, Levi said. It wasn't long before the police called. Not only was the underground casino taken down, but Aaron's matter was also revealed to be a fraud. All the suspects had been apprehended and the $70,000 that Aaron lost had been returned to him. Aaron hugged Levi with much excitement. Oh Levi, you are the best son-in-law we could ever have. You are a keeper. I can't believe you've settled this. Even Harry had to admit that Levi was useful this time. Caitlin, too, shed tears of joy. After all, the Lopez family was almost ruined. However, Zoe couldn't afford to be happy. The Rogers family definitely will not let this slide. In Zoe's opinion, offending the Rogers family was much more of a crisis than this. Reckoning that they would probably exterminate the entire Lopez family for this, she told Levi everything as soon as they returned to Bayview Garden. Yeah, I know. Levi nodded. What should we do next? The Rogers family will soon find out about this. Zoe was stressed out to the extreme. Don't worry. You still got me. Levi smiled. Zoe wouldn't have believed it if Levi had said that in the past. However, the scene of Levi breaking in through the window today was etched in her mind. It made her feel safe and secure, and she was no longer afraid to take on the world with Levi. Besides, if the Rogers family were to question them, she felt she could plead with Pamela. At night, while flipping through different news channels on her phone in bed, Zoe came across a piece of intriguing news that happened on the streets of Northampton. There was a military helicopter parked directly on the square with someone boarding it without giving so much of a backward glance. For some reason, Zoe actually associated the helicopter with Levi. After all, the figure of the person in the image looked rather similar to him, although it was fuzzy. Could it be Levi who came to Sheraton Hotel by helicopter and broke in through the window on the 30th floor? There is a possibility. Otherwise, what other explanation could there be? I will have to look for witnesses when there's time to see if it was Levi who boarded that helicopter. Golden Villa, the top luxury villa in Northampton, covered an area of over 50 hectares. It was where the aristocratic Rogers family resided. That night, the atmosphere at home was somber and dead. After all, Oswald, the heir of the family, was almost beaten to death and was still unconscious. The entire Rogers family was infuriated. At the pitiful sight of his grandson, Glenn exuded an aura of overwhelming force. Glenn had once fought on the battlefield. Although he had retired from the military, his bold and domineering aura was still palpable. At the end of his military career, Glenn had served as an instructor. He had taught many students, and some of them could now be found in every major war zone, such as Stephen Shaw, the colonel of Northampton 1st Metallic Regiment. Over the years, Stephen had been a great help to the Rogers family. Besides the Rogers family's own strength, it was the network of connections that Glenn had accumulated in the past, covering the military, political, and business circles, that had enabled the Rogers family to achieve their current level of success. Therefore, no matter what time of the day it was, his students were always at his beck and calls. Who did this? Glenn demanded. A gentle-looking middle-aged man stepped forward. He was Anthony, Oswald's father. Dad, it was Levi Garrisson. This is a sticky business. Oswald was beaten up by him for making indecent moves toward Zoe at the hotel. But the point is, the underground casino has been taken down, and they had ratted out on Oswald. Anthony's expression was very unsightly. Is the underground casino really owned by Oswald? Asked Glenn with a gloomy face. Anthony nodded. Yes, it is. Fred Turner from the criminal investigation team just called to confirm. Even the captain, Xavier Fields, knows about this. It's a devil of a tricky problem if we get back at Levi for this. What did Fred say? Glenn asked. They knew about the assault on Oswald, but they advised us to smooth things over and treat it as if it never happened, Anthony said. Now is not a good time to meet with a mishap when the Rogers Group's 40th anniversary celebration is just around the corner. The impact is just too big, Glenn sighed. However, Glenn changed the subject soon after. But look at my grandson. How can I stomach this? As you said, the celebration is around the corner. Let's get back at Levi once it's over, someone suggested. Okay, we will give him a few days to fool around, then I want him dead, no matter his background or power, said Glenn distantly. Then, having thought of something, he instructed, inform those students of mine to attend the celebration. Everyone felt a rush of excitement when they heard that. Some of Glenn's students served in the war zones, and others were in politics. In terms of age, they were about 30 to 40 years old, and each of them was in the prime of their life. All held influential positions, like Stephen Shaw. It would have been a magnificent sight to see such people come together for the celebration. In the next few days, what Zoe had been worried about didn't happen, and it made her jittery. Thereafter, she found out through connections that the casino belonged to Oswald, which explained why the Rogers family had left it at that. No wonder Levi was so confident. He knew the Rogers family wouldn't dare to make it public, Zoe mused, smiling. In fact, Levi didn't know about it at all and was still waiting for the Rogers family to take their revenge. He was shocked when he learned about it from Azure Dragon. It is said that the Rogers family will be having their 40th anniversary celebration a week later. I suppose they are afraid of the negativity it will bring about if they make a move on you now, Azure Dragon said. Levi tugged his lips into a smirk. 40th anniversary celebration? Nice, I will be there by then to present them with the biggest gift they will ever have. The Rogers family must be exterminated. It wasn't only Oswald who directed the entire conspiracy back then, but the Rogers family was also part of it. By the way, sir, I have found out what you asked me to investigate. The Rogers family only possesses part of Levi Group's core technologies. Other core technologies have disappeared, but there are corresponding products on the market, Azure Dragon said. Inspired by what happened to Oswald, Levi felt that there were probably other forces who targeted him back then as well other than the Garrison family and the Rogers family. Levi Group, which was founded by Levi, was mainly involved in the fields of medicine and science and technology. At that time, he had turned the volume up to 11 and broke into the market and was reckoned to have taken advantage of many people. The core technology developed by his team was especially terrifying, as it had elevated Levi's net worth by billions within a year. Many people had coveted Levi Group's core technology, and even more people wanted him dead. Hence, Levi had asked Azure Dragon to find out who was possessing the core technology. Just as he thought, the Rogers family only controlled part of it, and there were others who also took part in plotting his downfall. Keep searching according to those online products, Levi ordered. Even if the whole Northampton was turned upside down, revenge was his ultimate goal. For the past few days, Aaron and Caitlin had been very nice to Levi. Perhaps they felt guilty, but for Zoe's sake, Levi shrugged it off. When Levi came home at night, Abigail surprisingly showed up at their door. "Levi, I have got great news." Abigail beamed. Levi put on a confused expression. "Great news? What? Are you getting married?" "Pfft. I don't even have a boyfriend. Who am I supposed to marry?" "You," Abigail said, eyeing Zoe with hidden intentions in her words. "Then what's the great news?" "Say it," Levi said.